Okay, so in this section of the video, we're going to talk about 21 through 25. In number 21, you are asked to graph, pick out actually which equation represents the graph that's right here. And one thing that I would point out so that you're not trying every single thing, remember one of the simple things that we discussed was that a graph can have a specific orientation. So the graphs that are symmetric about or wrap around the y-axis, there doesn't have to be complete symmetry, but have an orientation around the y-axis would have the trig function sine in them. And then the ones that have orientation to the x-axis would have the word cosine. So that being the case, this one has orientation around the y-axis. So why don't we try B and C? Now you can see this goes up to 3 and down to -1. So we can try, I'm going to try B. Okay, so go into your calculator. Don't forget you're going to change your calculator to the mode to polar and radians. Polar and radians. And then you can go and type in your function. So I'm going to type in 4 sine of theta. I'm going to graph it. We can fix the window later. Okay, so this is what 4 sine of theta looks like. And you're going to have to just zoom in on that, but it doesn't go all the way down to -1. So now let's try C. 2 plus sine of theta. Try graphing it. Okay, this one goes down to -1. So this is the graph right here. So the answer is C. You didn't have to plot these by hand, so there's not too much discussion we can have other than for you to be in the correct mode, which is just polar and radians, and then you may have to fiddle with the window a little bit in order to make it appropriate for each graph. But for number 21, the answer is C. Okay, for number 22, we have a rose, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 petals on this rose. And so there was something that we learned about the rose graph, and that it was that if the coefficient of theta is even, then you double that, and that's how many petals there are. If it's an odd number, then that's exactly how many petals there are as is. So now since all of these, and this one is, that's a circle. So all of these are, we're going to try, and these were the limitions that had the plus in the middle. So why don't we try this one and this one. Okay, if we do the cosine graph for cosine 4 theta, see what that looks like. We might have to change the window. Okay, so there's an one of the leaves is wrapped around the y-axis, and you could give yourself more room if you want to see the whole thing. I just used a zoom fit window, and you can see that that's one of the choices that you've been given for this problem. So that answer would be C is what we just tried. You know what, let me see if that was the one that we just tried. Yes, for cosine 4 theta. Okay, so C for that answer. Okay, next problem is 23. And these are the graphs that you were given for this problem. And this time they give you the equation, which is a little easier because then that's the only thing that you have to press in. Whereas when you're going back the other way, you may have to try a couple of them. And that's only if it's multiple choice. It'd be harder otherwise. Okay, so I'm going to clear this out, put in the equation that they've given us, which is 5 plus 5. Oops. Sine theta. Graph that. And again, if you want to see the whole thing, you could go to Zoom Fit. Get a better look at what the graph looks like. Okay, so let's look at what choice that looks like. It has it's a Limouchon with no inner loop. And that's what happens when these two numbers are equal. It takes away the inner loop. So that would be this one right here, choice C. Okay, that's 23. Moving on to 24. Okay, for problem number 24, this is also in the form of a rose. There's 8 petals. There's a coefficient of 8 here, so since it's even, the number of petals would be 8 times 2. Anytime that that's even, you double it up to get the number of petals. But just to show you the graph anyway, this is 5 cosine 8 theta. Close that up. Now you can see all those petals emerging. And again, if you want to see the whole thing, you can do Zoom Fit. There you go. Okay, so that would be choice B. Okay, 24. Next problem is 25. Okay, so now this one, make this number out. This looks like, let me see what this is. Looks like a 1. But we'll see. Let's see which one this is. So this is, go into your calculator. It's a little hard to make out, but it appears to be a 1. So 2 minus 1 cosine theta. See what kind of graph that is. Okay, so let's see. If that is a 1, let's look at this as a 1. We'll have to check the answer key, but if I do look at that as a 1, that would be this graph right here. If you look at what came out on the calculator, it's at 2 and -2 and lags back. This is a dimpled Limouchon at cuts through at +1. So that would be choice A. Let's see what the answer key is, because then we'll know whether or not that was a 1. That was problem 25. Yes, that's A. So yes, that is a 1. Okay, that completes numbers 20 through 25.